स्यादौ कुर्वन् गीतामृतं ददौ लोकत्रयोपकाराय तस्मै कृष्णात्मने नमः. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavad Gita study, the part of the Bhakti Shastri course. Today we are discussing the third chapter, and we are going into the fourth section, which discusses about how Karma Yoga is different from Karma Kanda. Karma Kanda causes bondage, Karma Yoga doesn't cause bondage. So 3.25 and 26 talked about the contrast between the Vidwam and Asaktaha, those who are enlightened and detached, as contrasted with those who are ignorant and attached, Avidvam and Saktaha. So now, what is the difference between these two? That will be talked in the next three verses. So the 3.27 which we will discuss today is a famous verse. Prabhupada would quote this quite frequently. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudhatma karta ahamiti manyate. So, Prakriti Kriyamanani. Kriyamanani means being done. Kriya is action. So, Kriyamanani is being done. So, that which is done by Prakriti. Prakriti Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvashaha. So, the gunas of Prakriti, they do the actions. Ahankara Vimudhatma. The conditioned soul is Vimudha, is deluded by Ahankara. Ahankara is ego. Karta Aham. Thinks that I am the doer, iti manyate, things. Now, what does this verse actually mean? And if it says that everything is done by the three modes, then what is the reason or rationale for the Bhagavad Gita telling Arjuna, do this, don't do this, act in this way, don't act in this way? What would be the logic for all this if the Bhagavad Gita were actually telling this message that everything is done by the three modes? So actually the scriptures give philosophy within a context, and the context has to be understood. So the important point is here that the modes are the doer, and the soul who thinks that I am the doer is deluded, is vimudha. The important point is to understand that the soul is not the only doer. The soul is definitely a doer, but the soul is not the only doer. The soul is one of the doers. So let's consider this now. The soul is one of the doers. What does it mean? It essentially means that the soul is initiating the action. Baldev Vidyabhushan used the example Vedanta Sutra that a woodcutter cuts trees. So in his Govinda Bhashi explains that when a woodcutter cuts the tree, who is actually cutting the tree? It is not the woodcutter, it is the axe. So without the axe, if the woodcutter goes and starts hitting with the hands, the woodcutter will not be able to cut the tree. So for cutting a tree, the tool, that is the axe, is essential. So the cutter of the tree is actually the axe. But at the same time, the axe will not move on its own. The axe has the capacity to cut, but the axe does not have the consciousness by which to decide whether to cut or to not cut. So the axe moves because there is a conscious being who desires to cut a tree. So therefore now among these two, that the woodcutter desiring and deciding to cut the tree, and the axe being used to cut the tree, which is important? Both are important. It depends on the context. So similarly, when we talk about our actions in this world. So for example, right now I'm speaking. So how am I speaking? It is through the body. The voice box is producing some sound. So there is basically the organ of speech which is enabling me to speak. So now, without this organ of speech, I will not be able to speak. At the same time, even if that organ of speech is present, if I do not have the desire to speak, I will not speak. No sound will come out. So the organ of speech is like the tool for speaking, and the soul is the person. Soul is like the woodcutter. So both of them have to come together and speak. Now, this is with respect to normal actions, which we do. And Krishna is talking about here, he says that actually our actions, the way we are inclined to act, and the way we act, it is largely determined by the three modes. So somebody works very passionately, in a very driven way to achieve something. So somebody decides that I want to climb up Mount Everest, and then works very hard, trains, develops a lot of muscles and stamina, and then starts the climb, and there's a lot of courage despite the danger and possible disaster, and still keeps persevering, and finally climbs up Mount Everest. So, who actually did the climbing? Was it the soul or was it the body? It's the body that did the climbing. The body is the tool, and the body is governed by the laws of material nature. The body being governed by the laws of material nature, the soul has a particular kind of desires which also are governed by material nature. Not governed entirely, but generally for the soul, the gamut of choice of desires is determined by material nature. What does it mean? Suppose a student gets an exam, a competitive exam, what is the capital of India? Moscow, Washington, London, 3 options. No fourth option. No, none of these is the capital. What should I do? No, that's all options. You take only one of them. What will you do then? So actually, here whichever answer the student chooses, it's wrong because all the answers are wrong. So like that, what happens to the conditioned soul is that when the soul is disconnected from Krishna, the soul gets caught within material nature. And with material nature, okay, what do you want to do? How do you want to act? In ignorance, in passion, in goodness. See, all three are wrong actions for the soul. Because the soul by nature is spiritual. And being spiritual, the soul's natural actions are to love and serve Krishna. But if the soul doesn't know anything about spiritual knowledge, the soul is not connected with Krishna, then the only options that are there for the soul are the options that are provided by material nature. And all these options are based on the platform of ignorance, the platform of forgetfulness of Krishna, the platform of ignorance of one's spiritual identity. So, there is variety, how the soul wants to act, goodness, passion, ignorance. But ultimately, there is no real variety because the soul doesn't know about God. So now that is actually the predicament for the souls in the non-human species. They just have to act the way material nature pushes them to act. And in human body, also the material nature keeps pushing us to act in particular ways. We can't entirely resist or reject the pulls and pushes of material nature. We have to act in responsible ways. That means if we don't strongly fight against the pushes of material nature, we'll be impelled to act in particular ways. So that means a Kshatriya will be impelled to fight. A Kshatriya will be impelled to manage, to administer. That's the nature, and the nature cannot be given up. A Vaishya will be money-minded. A Vaishya will have a particular inclination by which the Vaishya will think about, okay, this, that's all. That's how the mind will be, and that's how the actions will turn out to be. So here, the point which Krishna is making to Arjuna through the context of this verse is that you cannot entirely resist or reject your nature, but act according to your nature, but within the limits of dharma. So a Vaishya is money-minded, but in the Vaishya is told, yes, you earn money, but by dharmic means. Kshatriya, in the 18th chapter we will see, has the quality called as Ishvara Bhav. Now, Ishvara Bhav is, now literally speaking, if we translate, the mood of God. That's what Ishvara Bhav would be. Bhav is mood or emotion. Ishvara is controller, the ultimate controller is Krishna. So, Ishvara Bhav. And Krishna talks about this quality not in a negative sense, but in a positive sense. What do we mean by positive sense? Krishna talks about the quality in the sense that it is a desirable quality. Ishvara Bhava is a laudable quality in Kshatriya. So he says, Idana Yuddhe Chapya Palayanam. Just as in the same breath that he talks about other good qualities, Yuddhe Chapya Palayanam, for example, The Kshatriyas never flee from a battle. Palayana means to fly, to run away. Apalayana means to never run away. And yuddhe, in the battlefield, even if they are faced against very difficult odds, Kshatriyas will not run away. So this is a quality that indicates the heroism of Kshatriyas, the courage of Kshatriyas. So in that same list of qualities, it talks about Ishwar Bhav also. So Ishwar Bhav is not a negative quality in a Kshatriya. It is just a fact of nature. The Kshatriya will have that nature. The Kshatriya will have an inclination to delegate, to organize, to manage, to administer. So, rather than trying to reject, resist or suppress that nature, one is encouraged to dovetail that nature in Krishna's service. So, if you see the previous verse, we're talking Joshayet Sarva Karmani. Joshayet means to dovetail. So, Krishna is continuing that theme over here, and the essential message that he is giving through this verse is that if you think that you are the fighter of Kshatriya as a Kshatriya, or you are the renouncer as a Gyan Yogi, in both cases, actually you have to understand that you are impelled by your mind, and the mind is making you act in particular ways. So rather than entirely trying to reject the mind, try to get the mind's pushings within the limits of dharma and dovetail yourself in devotional service. So the point which Krishna is making to Arjuna is that if you are thinking right now, I will renounce the world and I'll go to the forest, it's simply the modes impelling you to do this. But this impulse of the mode is not in harmony with your normal nature. And because it is not in harmony with your normal nature, there will be disruption. So understand what is your nature and act accordingly. Why act accordingly? Not just we completely surrender to our nature, but rather we dovetail our nature in devotional service. When we dovetail our nature in devotional service, or at least within the precincts of dharma, devotional service is bhakti yoga. Below bhakti yoga might be karma yoga also, which is what Arjuna is talking about over here. But even by that, you will become purified gradually. So the emphasis of this verse is recognize that your body has certain inclinations. Your mind has certain inclinations. You cannot resist or reject them completely. So therefore, dovetail them. That's what we will see from the next verse. So, Tattvavittu Mahabaho Gunakarma Vibhagayo Guna Guneshu Vartanta Iti Matvana Sajjate. Tattvavit tu Mahabaho. Tattvavit is one who is a knower. Tattvavit. Krishna has used the word Tattvadarshina earlier in 2.16. Nasato vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate ubhayor api drishto antastvana tattvadarshibhi. Tattvadarshibhi. So similar, Tattvadarshibhi is seer of truth. Here Tattvavit is knower of truth. Tattvavittu Mahabaho. O Arjuna, O mighty armed one. Guna karma vibhagayo. Guna karma vibhagayo. That the difference between work and devotion, Prabhupada translates that Guna karma vibhagayo. Prabhupada translates that as work in devotion and work for fruit results. Guna guneshu vartanta. So the person understands that actually when I am acting, essentially what is happening? Guna guneshu vartanta. The modes are acting in relationship with each other. Guna guneshu vartanta. Iti matva na sajjate. Knowing this, a person doesn't become attached. Na sajjate. So here what is Krishna saying? That Tattvavit, the person who is the knower of the absolute truth, such a person understand that when I am acting, when as a Brahmana I am studying Shastra and teaching Shastra, I might become proud. I know so much knowledge. I know far more than other people. And see how nicely I give classes. So if I become like that, then I am misidentifying with my psychophysical nature, and that sort of mentality will cause me bondage. But if I understand Guna Guneshu Vartanta, Guna Guneshu Vartanta, that means that actually the modes, the modes are interacting with each other, and basically in the material field, action is being performed according to my nature. So then I will not become bound, because I will understand that okay, this is my nature, this is how I should be acting. Guna Guneshu Vartanta. So in this way, we will be able to act and move forward in our life if we take things systematically. Guna Guneshu. So how do we do guna guneshu vartanta? This is Krishna is not telling over here, because the modes are acting, therefore you should know. What should you do? Neither that you surrender to the modes, nor that you completely try to resist the modes. Neither are possible. But what the Tattvavid do? The Tattvavid does. Tattvavid knows that actually, if I don't get attached, then I will not become bound. Iti matva na sajjate. Na sajjate means the person says that, oh, I will not become bound by this. So all this may seem a little bit abstract and philosophical for us, because to familiarize ourselves with the concept of the three modes itself takes some time. But essentially, what this means is that a conditioned soul, when the conditioned soul becomes a sadhaka and starts practicing spiritual life, at that time the soul understands that I'm trapped in a machine. This body is basically like a machine. As a machine, it has certain pushings, certain pullings. By default, just like in a computer, sometimes when we choose certain options, they become default options. When they become default options, as soon as we turn on the machine, those settings get activated and the default option turns on. So like that, based on the way we have acted in the past, the body and the mind, both of them, have developed certain tendencies. So although the computer's default settings can be changed, but default setting getting activated happens automatically, and changing of the default settings doesn't happen automatically. That requires conscious involvement and effort. Similarly, the body has certain default settings, and according to those default settings, the soul acts. So when the soul acts, what does it mean soul acts according to those default settings? The soul is transcendental. But when the soul is within the body and the soul is acting in the material level, the soul will act according to the default settings of the body. So when the soul acts according to the default settings of the body, at that time, the soul actually moves step by step forward in spiritual life. That means by acting out of default settings, but keeping that within the limit of dharma. So I have the nature of a Shudra, and rather resenting it and trying to imagine, oh, I would like to be a Brahmana. No, if I'm a Shudra, no problem. It's not that Shudras are outlaws. It's not that Shudras can't practice dharma. They have their dharma. By practicing the dharma of a Shudra, one will become elevated. So here Krishna is saying that recognize that the modes are the doers, and don't let the modes take you on a ride which takes you outside the precincts of dharma. At the same time, don't completely resist the modes also. Neither is possible. Regulate it. Here Bhagavad Gita offers us a middle way. Iti matva na sajjate. Now Prabhupada's purport focuses on the point of Tattvavit. Who is the Tattvavit? Prabhupada correlates this with the famous Srimad Bhagavatam verse, Vadanti Tattvavidas Tattvam Yad Jnanam Advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabdati Vadanti Tattvavidas. So Tattvavid was there over here and Tattvavidas is over there, same point, verse almost. So now Krishna will continue the same point and he will explain this further. Prakriter guna sammudha sajjante guna karmasu dana kritsna vido mandan kritsna vinna vichalayet. Prakriter guna sammudha. Guna sammudha means moodha is deluded. Sammudha is completely deluded. Samyak rupena moodha. It's completely deluded. So earlier Krishna said vimudhatma. Krishna is continuing the same theme, thread of thought over here. Let's take some moodha. So one who is deluded by prakriter guna, by the three modes of material nature. Sajjante guna karmasu. So a person becomes attached to the guna karma. So here, you have to remember the word guna here doesn't refer to qualities. It refers to modes. If we say guna karma as qualities and activities, we'll get confused. It doesn't make much sense over here. Guna karma here means activities which are within the influence of, which are impelled, which are motivated, which are actuated by the three modes. So tan akritsna vido mandan. So who does like this? Who becomes attached? Akritsna vido, one who does not know properly. And mandan. Mandan means lazy. Kritsnavin navichalayet. Navichalayet means does not disturb. So here it's another point which another second time Prabhupada is repeating, or rather Krishna is repeating what he has talked about earlier. Na buddhi bhedam janayed, he had said at the start of this section. So now he's again repeating na vichalayet. Na vichalayet means don't disturb. So why don't disturb? Because by such disturbance one disrupts people's gradual advancement. See, the Vedic scriptures give two methods for advancement. One is the gradual method and the other is the rapid method. So the gradual method involves dovetailing people's propensities for the sake of slow progressive. So karma kanda involves what? People want material enjoyment, so they are given material enjoyment. How? Through the means of dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So people go through dharma and artha, kama, and that itself, the cycle may go on for many lifetimes. And after that they will gradually seek moksha. So this is a gradual way for elevation. Now the important point in dharma, artha, kama is that social order is maintained while people are also provided sense gratification. How are people provided sense gratification? Because there is arrangement for artha and kama. People, for most people, material pleasure is a necessity. And for devotees also, only when we are very spiritually advanced can we survive only on spiritual happiness. So then in the sadhaka stage, we have nice music, we have nice prasad, we have a loving devotee association. Now, are we getting material pleasure or are we getting spiritual pleasure over here? Actually, it should be spiritual happiness, but it is not always spiritual happiness. When kirtans are going on, are we relishing spiritual happiness at that time? If it were purely spiritual, then we could have just the same tune being sung every day, month after month, year after year, and we wouldn't need to change tunes. But still we differentiate, oh, this devotee sings nicely, this devotee doesn't sing so nicely. When there is prasad, see, oh, what is there for prasad today? Oh, this item, not this item. If we are actually tasting Krishna through the prasad, then whatever with the prasad we would be having the same level of enthusiasm. But we don't. So this is not necessarily bad. There is variety in the spiritual realm also, and it is not that to prove that I am devoted to prasad I have to take the same food every day. I have transcended the faculty of taste. That's not the mood of bhakti. We don't want to transcend. We want to spiritualize. So the point which I made is that right now in the sadhaka stage, we want to give up all material happiness, but because we are living at the material level of consciousness, at the material level of reality right now, so therefore spiritual happiness becomes manifest to us through material means. So when we hear kirtans or we participate in feasts, so at that time the material aspects also play a role in our being attracted or not being attracted. This is not necessarily bad. This is just a arrangement by which we can gradually be elevated, slowly, steadily, and ultimately we come to the spiritual level where the material level just doesn't matter for us. But for most sadhakas, for most people who are not necessarily sadhakas of spiritual truth, they are basically dharmic people, they are religious people, and they want to stay within the precincts of dharma. Now when I say dharma, it's like a big circle. Within dharma there is aparadharma and then there is paradharma. So within the circle of dharma, dharma, artha, kama, moksha also comes. And in this, as the circle of dharma becomes smaller and smaller, it takes us closer and closer to the ultimate goal, that is Krishna. So in the system of dharma, artha, kama, moksha, Krishna may not be the goal of people. Their goal is artha and kama primarily. Although they acknowledge Krishna and they want to also worship Krishna, but they don't want to purely devote themselves to Krishna. But when people come to dharma projita kaitavatra paramo nirmat saranam satam, the Bhagavatam talks about param, the paradharma, and there at that place dharma, artha, kama, moksha is pushed aside. So at that level of reality, the focus becomes not dharma, artha, kama, but it becomes prema, it becomes love of Krishna. So that is the level where people are ready to settle, become fixed on the ultimate truth. So now what Krishna is saying over here is that don't try to rush people to the higher level of renunciation. So there is dharma, artha, kama, and there is moksha. So when people are not ready for moksha, if you push them towards moksha prematurely, that will create problems for them. They will not be able to practice. They will not be able to do that. Krishna will na vichalayet. Krishna says, do not disturb these people. What will happen? Earlier in this chapter, doesn't talk about mithyachara sauchyate. A person is pushed to renounce the world, and when the person renounces the world, doesn't have the capacity to renounce the world, and the person becomes hypocritical at that time. So that is undesirable. Now, we again, this chapter may raise this issue again and again, that we also have devotees in the renounced order. So in the early days of our movement, it was thought as if that if you want to be a serious devotee, you have to be renunciate. And if somebody does not renunciate, that means that person is not a serious devotee. But this is a misconception. One's seriousness is not determined by one's ashram. One's seriousness is determined by one's conviction, one's commitment. And that is what is important. At the end of our life, Krishna is not going to see which ashram we lived in. Krishna will see how much ashray we have taken. How much, not which, both whichever ashram we are in, the ashram is a facility by which we can take ashray of Krishna. So, whichever ashram we stay in, what is important is how much ashray of Krishna we take. So, if somebody is in the renounced order, that person becomes proud, see, I am a renunciate, and doesn't take ashray of Krishna, then they will not make much spiritual advancement. If somebody in the grahastha ashram and doesn't take ashray of Krishna, thinks that, see, I am such an influential person in the world, I am giving charity in the temple. Because of me that all these renunciates are being maintained. One starts becoming proud like that, then one is not taking ashray of Krishna, there also one will not make spiritual advancement. So our spiritual advancement is not determined by where we are situated, it is determined by how we are situated. How means how in our consciousness we are situated. So here Krishna is telling that different people have different natures. So depending on their convictions, depending on their level right now, they have to be situated accordingly. If we try to push them first, it will not work. So again we have to remember, with respect to Krishna conscious situation, Krishna is not talking here about Bhakti Yoga at all. He is talking about a comparison between Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. So essentially he is telling that people who are not qualified to give up their karma, that means, there are three levels. There is Karma Yoga, there is Karma Kanda, and there is Jnana Yoga. So Krishna is telling here, now he is repeatedly, his point is, don't give up, don't go for Jnana Yoga. Why? Although even if Jnana Yoga is higher, people are not capable of doing it. So don't do it and don't instruct people to do it. Let them act according to that level. So now, let them act in the world. How should they act? Krishna is telling, Arjuna, you act in Karma Yoga. People may be acting only in Karma Kanda. But you act in Karma Yoga. For what purpose? By this you will become elevated. By this gradually you will become, because you set a good example, you will be contributing to social order, and also because you are acting with detachment, you will become elevated. So let's look at this verse. Prakriter guna sammudhaha. So one who is deluded by the modes of material nature, prakriter guna sammudhaha, asajjante guna karmasu. So attached people, how do they act? When they act, they become attached. When they do guna karma, they become attached. Previous verse says, na sajjate, don't become attached. But he said they will become attached. But even if they are becoming attached, na vichalayet, don't disturb them. Because through that attachment, gradually they will develop realization, they will develop detachment. But if they are told to prematurely renounce, they will disrupt their conscience, they will disrupt their spiritual life entirely. They will disrupt society also. Na vichalayet. So Prabhupada writes that such bewildered persons may be engaged in such primary moral principles of life as non-violence and similarly benevolent work. Now here Prabhupada makes a very significant statement that Lord Krishna advises not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. But the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risk, even to the point of approaching ignorant men, to try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human being. So here, Krishna, Prabhupada is saying as if the devotees are contradicting Krishna's will. Actually, they are not contradicting, they are fulfilling Krishna's will. See, ultimately, within this progression, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, Krishna ultimately wants all souls to come back to the spiritual world and to be with Him and to be forever happy with Him. That's what Krishna ultimately wants. But when He wants this ultimately, transitionally, there is a progression. The souls cannot uh, suddenly give up things. There is a progressive treatment that is happening. For example, if a parent has a child in the hospital, so at that time, the parent wants the child to come back home from the hospital. But that doesn't mean that if the child is in the middle of a treatment, which is going to take as a complex and complex disease which requires several months of treatment, the parent can't feel that, or can't say that, oh, I want my child home, so let him just leave everything and come home. That sort of coming home will not be of much use. The first the child in the hospital, child has to get treated, get cured, and then come back home. So there is a process of gradual treatment, that is dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, which takes bahunam janmanamante. And there is a rapid treatment, which involves the practice of bhakti yoga. So now, bhakti yoga is what Srila Prabhupada is talking about over here. That the devotees think that even if people get a little disturbed, let them practice spiritual life. Let them take the fast track treatment. So imagine that there is a hospital where there is a slow course of treatment and there is a fast course of treatment. Naturally, if there are two kinds of treatments, you may say everyone will want fast course of treatment. But maybe the fast course of treatment involves more sacrifices. You have to practice a very severe diet and have a very strict exercise regimen, and involves so many sacrifices that people say, I can't do this. So let me take the slow track treatment. I can get cured in 1 month or I can get cured in 1 year. But I can't do this fast track treatment. So let me take the 1 year treatment. So like that, there is a slow track treatment and there is a fast track treatment. So dharma, artha, kama, moksha is the slow track, and bhakti is the fast track. So Prabhupada says that let a devotee practice the fast. Devotees want people to take up the fast track treatment. That's why the Lord's purpose is fulfilled by devotees going and telling people, please do this, do this. So now, after this, Krishna says that ultimately the karma yoga also has to be offered to him. He is the object of karma yoga. Ultimately, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyadhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva vidyasva vigata jvaraha. So, Mai sarvani karmani, unto me all karmas, sanyasya, give the fruits of all work to me. Adhyatma chetasa. Adhyatma chetasa means with spiritual consciousness. Nirashir nirmamo bhutva. Without any desire and without any possessiveness. Yudhyasva vigata jvaraha. Fight without lethargy. So actually this is one of the very important verses. And Prabhupada says this is almost like military discipline. Like in a military, what is the point? Military discipline means, in a military, when a person is told to do something, just do it. However one feels. Early in the morning, the cadets are told to wake up and go for marching. The discipline is so strict that they are not allowed to disobey. This is what they are told to do, just do it. Don't ask any questions. Why is that? Because the military is a very serious service. When the soldiers on the warfield at that time, they have to obey the orders, and by obeying the orders itself, they will be able to. It's a matter of life or death for them as well as for their colleagues. So they have very strict training. Now, practicing spiritual life is not just a matter of life or death. It's a matter of eternal life versus repeated birth and death. It's also a very serious matter. Because it's a serious matter, it has to be accorded the due amount of gravity in terms of commitment and training. So this verse talks about that. So let's look at this. So this verse, actually there are 4 lines in it, and each of these lines talks about something which will take one upwards. So vigata jvaraha, yudhyasva vigata jvaraha. So yudhyasva is like the primary verb in it. What should you do, Arjuna? Fight. In fight how? Vigata jvaraha. Vigata jvaraha means give up lethargy. So this is talking about giving up the mode of ignorance. Nirashir nirmamo bhutva. So to have asha and to have mamata, to have desires and to have attachments for possessions. That is the mode of passion. So the D line 3.30 D says give up ignorance, 3.30 C says give up passion. Sanyasya adhyatma chetasa. This refers to when one comes to spiritual consciousness, that is actually coming not just to goodness but even going beyond goodness. Because in goodness, one still has attachment to worldly things. So sannyas and adhyatma chetasa, they are actually at the peak of goodness. And mai sarvani karmani is transcendental. So it's not just devotional, it is transcendental. What is the difference between devotional and transcendental? Actually, devotional means somebody can be within three modes of material nature and at the same time do devotional activities. So all of us are doing devotional activities, but are all of us transcendental? No, we are not yet transcendental. We are struggling to transcend. And sometimes we are pulled down, sometimes we are able to rise up. So that means, see, there is ignorance, passion, goodness, then there is transcendence. And in transcendence also, actually there is spiritual and there is devotional. In transcendence, there is spiritual and devotional. What is the difference between spiritual and devotional? Spiritual would mean, in general, anything to do with the soul. So in Brahmavad, even impersonalism can be spiritual. But devotional means that which is centered on Krishna. Now, devotional in that sense of perfection is the highest level. That means within the spiritual realm also, if we have, there is spiritual and there is devotional. So devotional is the highest. But the wonderful aspect of devotional is that devotional can extend from the highest down to the lowest. So the path of bhakti is a path that stretches up to the summit, but then it goes down to the valley also, to the lowest level. That means that a person in tamoguna can also practice bhakti yoga. And of course, a person if practices bhakti yoga steadily won't stay in tamoguna forever. The person is staying on in tamoguna forever, that means the person is not seriously practicing bhakti. The person is not letting the potency of bhakti bring about an inner transformation. If that inner transformation is to be brought out, then the person has to practice bhakti seriously. And then the person will no longer stay in the three modes. So the point is bhakti can be practiced from any mode. So it's like a big ladder. You can imagine a ladder which extends down to the lowest level of ignorance, and it's a ladder that goes up, not just to goodness, but beyond goodness to transcendence, and within transcendence also not just spiritual, but also pure devotional. So that's the process of bhakti yoga. So Krishna is saying, Mai sarvani karmani, offer all your work to me. So this is the first time again Krishna has talked about offering something to himself. In 2.61, he had said, control your senses and offer the control senses to me. Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta sita matparaha. So here he is saying, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasa. There it was to control the senses and fix the mind on me. Here it is without lethargy, without attachments, without desires, with a renounced consciousness, with a renounced spiritual consciousness. Do your work, yudhasva, fight, and offer the fruits of your work to me. So this is Prabhupada's purport, is a classic purport here. Let's look at it. This verse indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. Very significant. The purpose of the Bhagavad Gita is indicated in this verse. What is that purpose? It is to offer everything to Krishna. So Prabhupada uses the word as if in military discipline here. Now here Prabhupada makes an interesting point. The living entity cannot be happy independent of the cooperation of the Supreme Lord, because the eternal constitutional position of the living entity is to become subordinate to the desires of the Lord. So it's our nature to be connected with Krishna, to love Krishna and to gain happiness thereof. Just as a fish cannot be happy outside water, we cannot be happy separated from Krishna. Just as a living being cannot say, the Padyavali has a beautiful verse which says that, my dear Lord, just as the land without water turns to desert, just as a living being cannot live without food, as a sick person needs medicine, just as a person in a desert needs water, just as a person in a famine needs food, just as the flowers need sunlight for blossoming. So it gives various examples from nature, and finally it says, and similarly, O Lord, I need you. So the point of this verse is that actually we need you, my dear Lord. Please reveal yourself to us. Please reveal yourself to us. So that is our nature. We cannot live without Krishna. Now, Prabhupada says that if there is any reluctance to execute such a stern order, which is without consideration of so-called kinsmen in the bodily relationship, that reluctance should be thrown off. In this way, one may become Vigata Jwara, or without feverish mentality or lethargy. So the word Jwara has one more meaning, that is fever. Jwara. So Jwara means fever or lethargy. So now fever can make us do two things. When we are feverish, we just feel, I got fever, I can't do anything. We just want to lie down, cuddle in a bed and pull a blanket over ourselves and go to sleep. So we feel like that. Our feverishness can also lead to hyperactivity at times. That is not so much like a physical fever, but it's a mental fever. For example, when people use the word mania, means say some cricket World Cup comes up or soccer World Cup comes up, then people become maniac. Everywhere people will say, people wear t-shirts of of their favorite stars, and there are everywhere hoardings, and they're always talking about it. And there is this almost, people are gripped by a mania over there. So how does this gripping by the mania happens? It happens because they are having that fever over there. So the modes subject people to their influence, and the modes the modes are also subtle. It's not that somebody will come. It's like police will come and arrest a person. So you're under arrest. We handcuff you. Then the person, if somebody comes like that, then the person will try to run away, or will try to evade arrest. So when the modes come, the modes don't interest. Say, now I am mode of ignorance coming. Surrender to me. Modes don't come like that. Now I am mode of passion coming. Obey me. The modes come wearing attractive masks. So the World Cup is coming. Enjoy. Yeah, enjoy. But what do they do in the name of enjoyment? They become puppets of the mode of passion, puppets of the mode of ignorance. And it's amazing how, just after some time when the mania gets over, people just completely forget it. Or we see fashions. When a particular fashion grips people, then everybody may have a hairstyle of a particular kind, or everybody may wear shoes of a particular kind. And then suddenly, after some time, that whole mania goes off. So, now, even from the material point of view, if you observe it in the detached, you'll see, what is this happening? It's just so foolish. But that is how it works. Jwara means feverishness. People become feverish about doing certain things. So this feverishness is a result of the modes. We have to be able to see these modes acting in nature, in society. If you say according to surveys, how do people spend their lives? They have, major part of their life goes in work. They go to office and they work. And when they leave their workplace, after that their time goes in maybe two activities. Watch and shop. They come home and they're with their family, but they're not watching their family. They're watching TV. So the whole family is united in illusion. And all of them are adoring, taking darshan of the illusions that are displayed on the television, and they become dulled and lulled. They become physically lulled. Physically lulled means physically they become inactive, and mentally they become dulled and lulled. So what happens when such a thing happens? Actually on the television, all the enjoyment is second hand. Second hand means that actually, say there is a hero and heroine who are dancing and kissing, and everybody is watching, wondering, if I was there, it would be so nice over there. So it's all second hand enjoyment. Other people are enjoying and we think that, oh, I am enjoying. So that's why generally when people watch some TV or watch some movies in a movie theater, they want something to eat. They have some potato chips or something like that. Why? Because everything is illusion, something must be real. Something has to be real. I have to get something. Everything else I'm imagining and trying to get. So they keep eating. So people sometimes eat potato chips and then they become like potatoes. Obesity is a big problem, and one of the biggest causes of obesity is unconscious eating. Unconscious eating is normally, if we are conscious of what we are eating, then the body itself sends signals. Now this is enough. This is enough. And then we can stop. But when we are not conscious of what we are eating, if we are doing some other activity which very excites us a lot, then our consciousness goes in another direction, and then we are not aware of how much we are eating. And that's the time when we tend to overeat. And especially if something tastes good also, and if it has a lot of fat content in it, then it can just, person can bloat up like an overblown balloon. And then some diseases come and then the person's health becomes burst terribly sometimes. So the point is, we're talking about here that it's the modes which are acting. So when people, when they come, they watch TV. And what happens when they watch TV? The television is not run by compassionate people who want to do social work. It's run by passionate people who are out to earn money. So there are all kinds of advertisements. Purchase this, take this, watch this. So basically what does the TV tell you? Basically the television tells us, hey, your watch is wrong. It's an old-fashioned watch. Take this new watch. Your cell phone is old. Throw it away. Take this new cell phone. Your computer, it's old. Take this one. Basically, what it tells us is, take this, take this, take this. All the commercials, they tell us that. And when they tell us that, essentially what it means is, if you don't have it, you're a goner. You're an old-fashioned person. What is the use? So then what happens when people watch television? Then they go and shop. Take this, take this, take this, take this. So actually there is a whole addiction called as shopaholism. It's like the shopaholics. Just like there are alcoholics, there are shopaholics. Alcoholics are people who just can't stop drinking. Even when their drinking causes harm, even ruin to their health, to their families, to their relationships, to their intelligence, to their integrity, still they can't stop. The same as with shopaholics. Just have to shop. Take this, take this, take one more thing, one more thing, one more thing, one more thing. And especially now with credit card coming up, people don't realize how much I'm spending many times. Spend so much and purchase so many things. So shop till you drop. Just like that. People just keep shopping. They drop physically or they drop financially. And sometimes even after that they somehow want to keep. So it can become an addiction. So why does it happen? Because from everywhere around messages are coming. Take this, take this, take this, take this. So actually people have to be very careful. So here as devotees, we may see these as trends. Okay, the society is becoming modern or it become progressive or all that. But essentially what is happening is the mode of passion is taking a stronger grip on people's minds. So people come from their workplace, they have done work over there, then they think I want to relax. And they sit in front of their TV and watch. So when they watch, they get so many ideas. Oh, I can get this, I can get this, I can get this. So the whole business of advertising is, the best advertisers are those who can make us feel that we won't be able to live without the things which are being advertised. Although we can very easily live without them. What we don't need, they make us feel that we need it as much as if we can't live without it. That is how advertisements influence us. Take this, take this, take this, take this. Then people go and shop. So these are three primary activities: work, watch, shop. People go work, and work, and then they come back. Oh, I want to relax, and they watch. And then after watching television, they feel, what to do? I have to get all these things. So shop. And now normally when you shop, then what happens? At that time, shopping doesn't happen free. So one has to earn more money, then work more. When they work more, then what happens? They feel, I'm so tired. I got to watch more TV to relax. They watch more TV, then they get see more advertisement, they get more ideas, then they shop more. And in this way, just they get trapped. Work, watch, shop. WWS. It is the worldwide stupidity that is encompassing everyone. And this is actually an example of how the mode of passion can captivate a person. So here, why did I give a such elaborate example? It's a slight detour from our discussion, but I'm simply trying to illustrate the point that karta aham iti manyate, that when there is a feverishness, jwaraha. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, yudhyasva vigata jwaraha. Yudhyasva represents the activity, the prescribed duty. So all of us have to live in the world, and while living in the world, we have to do prescribed duties. But how do we do the prescribed duties? Yudhyasva vigata jwaraha. While living in the world, we can be overcome by the frenzy, by the mania, by the feverishness that is present in the world. So we have to stay away from that. Vigata jwaraha, yudhyasva vigata jwaraha. This is the kind of feverishness which can leave people senseless and bankrupt at times. So vigata jwaraha, one has to stay away from that. And how will that happen? Nirashir nirmamo bhutva. You want to avoid the feverishness, nirashir nirmamo. One shouldn't have too many desires, shouldn't have too much possessive mentality. Ultimately, I have come in this world. I came with nothing, I'll go with nothing. The only thing that will go with me is my connection with Krishna. So why should I bother to acquire this and that? All the things. What is the use of that? So Socrates was a famous Greek thinker, and one time he was known to be very simple and he was austere. So one time people found that he had gone to the marketplace and he was standing in the marketplace looking at the various wares that are being sold for a long time. So one of his friends then went and needled him. He said, "Oh, Socrates, you also been bitten by the shopping bug? You also started shopping?" He says, "You're also dreaming about shopping?" He says, "No." Socrates was grave. He said, "I am looking at all the unnecessity that people are shopping. So what do you need all these things for? These are all unnecessities." So vigata jwaraha, this is the kind of feverishness that we have to stay free from. Then, now Krishna will talk in the next two verses about faith. Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto anasuyanto muchyante tepi karmabhi. So, ye me matam, these are my words, idam nityam, these are eternal words. Oh, Arjuna, don't think that these are just words which I have spoken to you to make you fight. This is eternal truths about how the modes are and how we become entangled and how we have to stay free from those modes. Anutishtanti manavaha. So those people who act according to those manavas, who act according to this faithfully, shraddhavanto anasuyanto, those who act with faith and who act without envy. What happens to them? Muchyante tepi karmabhi. They will become liberated from the bondage of karma. Muchyante. Muchyante means they will be liberated. So Krishna is telling here that by faith, by faithful adherence to my instructions, those who do this, follow this, they will become liberated. Now Prabhupada's purport here is quite significant. Prabhupada says that it is eternally true. Krishna's words are true. Now, he says, an ordinary person with firm faith in eternal justice of Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. So it's significant. Prabhupada is saying, even though unable to execute such orders. So you wonder, if I'm not able to execute the orders, how will I become liberated? So then Prabhupada clarifies that. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord. But because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada is saying that we should not be resentful and we work sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness. That means, say for example, it is so that we have to become pure devotees of Krishna. Anya bilashita shunyam. Give up all material desires. Say, that's not possible for me. I can't do it. Okay, even if you are not able to do it, that's okay. We should not resent the principle. We may not be able to practice the principle, but we should not resent the principle. See, resentment creates a wall between us and Krishna. Why is Krishna? Why is it like this? Why am I the servant? Why is Krishna the enjoyer? Actually, the word servant may create a negative connotation in our mind. Prabhupada writes that service to the Lord is the most congenial form of intimacy. The relationship of servant and master in the transcendental realm is very sweet. It's based on love. So once we understand Krishna loves me and love means service. So with this understanding, when we engage, at that time there is no difficulty. In the sense that even if I am not able to practice certain thing, I am not resenting the principles. See, there are pure devotees and there are potential pure devotees. Pure devotees means those who have no material desires. Potential pure devotees means those who have accepted the principle of pure devotion, even if they are not able to practice this principle right now, they are moving forward and they will come to that principle, they will come to that practice gradually. Gradually they will come to that level of practice. So if we do not have any resentment, I want to chant attentively, but I'm not able to concentrate. So what should I do? Just throw away the feedback. Forget this chanting. No, that is resentment. That is frustration. Without hopelessness, Prabhupada says, without defeat or hopelessness. So even if I am not able to practice, yes, let me continue. Let me continue. So if I keep continuing like this, gradually purification will happen. Krishna is pleased not just by our action but also by our intention. So if he sees that we are trying to sincerely serve, even if we are not able to serve, then Krishna sees our intention and he is pleased by that intention. And then he grants us purification. And when there is purification, then there is elevation. And when there is elevation, then there is satisfaction. Why satisfaction? Because we are connecting with Krishna. So therefore, we try, even if we are not able to do the actions of devotional service properly, the regulative principles, we are not able to follow them properly. Chanting, we are not able to do attentively. But we have the intention. And with the intention, Krishna, you are the enjoyer, I am the servant, I want to serve you. We have the intention, and with that intention, we keep serving. When we keep serving in that way, then gradually there is purification, there is elevation, and then there is satisfaction, higher satisfaction will come. And once the higher satisfaction comes, then the prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasya upajayate, as we discussed earlier in 2.65, and we will be following these principles will become easy. So we shraddhavanto, with faith we act. Faith, yes, these are principles. Even if I can't follow them, I accept them as true, and I will try to follow them to the best of my capacity. When I follow them to the best of my capacity, gradually I will become elevated. So now this is a two-set verse which is a contrast. So in this verse Krishna says, what happens to those who are faithful? And the next verse, there's 32, Krishna will say, what happens to those who are faithless? Ye tvaitatadabhyasu yanto nanutishtanti me matam sarvagyana vimodhanstam vidhinashtana chetasaha. So ye tvaitatadabhyasu yanto. Abhyasu yanto is envious. So na anutishtanti, the previous verse was tishtanti. Tishtanti means to follow. Those who do not follow my instructions. Abhyasu yanto, because of envy, those who do not follow my instructions. Sarvagyana vimudhamstam. They, all their knowledge becomes deluded. Vidhi nashtana chetasaha. Chetasaha is consciousness. Achetasaha is misdirected consciousness. Prabhupada translates without Krishna consciousness. And therefore, all their endeavors become ruined. So here what Krishna is essentially telling us, that if we reject the principle, resent and reject the principle that ultimately everything is meant to be offered to Krishna, and we try to withdraw into our own shell of isolation and self-centered enjoyment, then whatever knowledge we acquire, whatever other endeavors we do, they will all be lost. Why they'll be lost? Because the soul without Krishna cannot be happy. There were many atheist philosophers. Many of the biggest atheist philosophers of the last century, they, towards the end of their life, they went mad. Some of them committed suicide. There's one philosopher who had his own philosophy. He said, actually, there is no God, there is no soul. This life is all that we have, and this life is filled with suffering. That was his philosophy. And therefore, what a gloomy worldview. What a gloomy worldview. There is no God, there is no soul, there is no eternal life. There is only this life, and this life is filled with suffering. Therefore, his idea was, he wrote a famous essay, infamous essay you could say. He says, the only philosophical question in life is whether to commit suicide tomorrow or today. Life is meaningless, life is filled with suffering. Whether to commit suicide tomorrow or today. So, what a gloomy picture of life. And this is not, it is gloomy and it is untrue also. So this is what sarvagyana vimudhamstam vidhinashtana chetasaha. But who rejects Krishna as a person, will not achieve ultimate perfection. That person will stay in the bondage of material existence. So in this way, Krishna exhorts Arjuna to continue doing Karma Yoga and gradually rise to Bhakti Yoga. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai.